This is the Caregiver's Careport, where we delve into the often unspoken world of the impact of caregiving on the caregiver's health and well-being. Today, we're going on a hero's journey with a caregiver who navigated her way through the challenges of caring for her mother by using her grit and her strengths of communication and connection. Since her mother's passing, she's using her voice to educate, support, and encourage others who care for loved ones with Alzheimer's. So settle in and hear from a caregiver who made it through and now shares her experiences to reach out and help others. Dana Steele is a strong and energetic voice for Alzheimer's caregivers. She's the author of the book Surviving Alzheimer's with Friends, Facebook, and a really big glass of wine. She's the playwright and lead actor of the play The Woman in the Mirror, based on her book. And she's the creator and host of the podcast Surviving Alzheimer's. Also, she has had a career in radio and is a member of the Rock and Roll Radio Hall of Fame. Well, welcome, Dana. You have so much to share about your caregiving years and have shared it in a way that is so moving, raw, honest, and really inspiring to so many people. And caregivers have really learned from and responded with gratitude for your generosity and kind of laying bare your experiences and expanding the conversation about caregiving and the devastating illness of Alzheimer's. So let's start out by kind of laying the groundwork for people who don't know your story, and if you could just share how and why you became a family caregiver.
Oh, most certainly. Thank you so much for having
Yeah.
me on. I always appreciate a chance to tell this story because nobody talks about it. I mean, we talk about it a lot more than we used to when I first found out my mom had Alzheimer's, but
Mm-hmm.
people still act like I acted when I heard the diagnosis. Oh, Alzheimer's, that's not good, but you know what? I'll just organize this and I'll figure it out and we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you won't. And,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's story is different and it's crazy, but my father passed away in December of 2012, and mom was his principal caregiver. And, she was getting older. She was dingy. She couldn't sit still at dinner. There's, looking back now, there's a million different things because I, become this unintended Alzheimer's expert. I can look back and go, oh, yeah, it was happening then. Oh, yeah, it was happening
Yeah.
then. But at that point, it's when dad died and her routine was thrown off that I started to notice she was, maybe getting a little older and a little more unsteady than I had actually noticed before because she had that routine with dad. And going back and forth to help her take care of things, I just kept noticing, everything was a crisis. In fact, my ringtone was for my mom was that horrible alarm sound. Because I was like, oh God, here we go again. What is it now? And it would be something like, I can't find the dog's sweater. And it was like, the dog is going to be fine. And I finally said, Mom, I can't. She was about, it was about 45 minutes to an hour to her house from my house. And I was I'm the child that was doing most of the caregiving, and she was my best friend. And so I was the one who took care of things. And I finally said, you got to move closer to me. I can't keep this up. And I made a deal with her. I won't sell your house, do anything, give anything away for 3 months. My Aunt Mary, who had originally, who was a decorator, had done her house. Will come and do your new apartment. We got her an apartment in an independent living place close to us. So I made a deal with her. And it was kind of like, if you love me, please just try this. Anybody can do anything for 3 months. And I got her closer, and just spending all this time with her and starting to see things, little things like she didn't remember who Christy was. Christy was my best friend since I was 13, 14 years old and my maid of honor. Somebody mom should have remembered. She was a jeweler. She mailed a $5,000 pearl necklace or bracelet, something, back to the wrong person. Fortunately, she mailed it to a friend of mine who said, and I just went, oh, she's whatever. But I thought, we need to do a checkup. We need to do a checkup. So I took her to her primary care physician, which is the first thing you should do if you're starting to notice. And they gave her the Montreal Cognitive Assessment Test, the MOCA. They gave her 5 words to remember. They asked her, who's the president? And she said, that man. And not real sure which man she was talking about. They asked her the year. She got that right. This is in early 2013. They asked her to draw the numbers on a clock, and she drew all the numbers 1 through 12 on the right side.
Yeah.
And then they asked her what the words were, and she just started laughing and looked at me and went, "What words?" And that's when I knew. And then we did the rest of the neurological testing, all of that. And then it was official. It was Alzheimer's. Corbell, I called my husband. I called my sons. I called her brother. I called her other brother. I called maybe 10 people altogether. And then I thought, I called my brother, I can't keep saying Mom has Alzheimer's, and crying. And because there's 1,000 more people I needed to call. This woman, I come by this honestly. We collect people everywhere. And so I posted on Facebook, and I thought, it's awfully personal, and I hope I don't piss off her friends, but at least everybody will know, and I won't have to call. And then I can go answer their questions later. And so I just posted, my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's today. And I checked back the next day to see if anybody had commented, and there were hundreds of messages from family, from friends, from strangers. My mom, my dad, my aunt, my uncle, my husband, my wife. I was like, oh my God, why does nobody talk about this? And so it just sort of started to become. There's a line in the play, because I turned these posts for 2.5 years on Facebook into a book, which has now become a play. And there's a line in the play where I say, and I'm paraphrasing right now. I guess I should memorize this script if I'm going to do it again in 2 months. It's, posting whatever was happening, the good, the bad, the ugly, the funny. When I would post it and, when I would write it on Facebook and post it, it was some of the best therapy. I said it was like I could put this out into the universe and let go of that dark luggage I was dragging behind me. Because once I posted it, I forgot about it until people said, oh, my grandmother did this. Oh, my mom did this. And we were able to help each other. So that's kind of how it started. I realized Facebook had become my therapy and my support group, because I tell everybody, do not try to do this alone. You got to talk to somebody, even if it's just to scream and yell and throw things.
So really the first thing you did as a caregiver was to reach out to people to start the communication about it.
Yeah, the first thing, it was just because I didn't want to have to call people again because it hurt so bad. I didn't want to have to call everybody. And then when I realized, now you got to keep in mind, I've been on the radio since I was 17 years old, starting in college. So I have no filter. I have no secrets. I'm used to talking to complete strangers about, everything in my life, because that's what I've always done on the radio. And social media to me just became another radio station. It was another place to vent and to share and to laugh and to ask. And so I had a pretty big following, but, after posting that, I realized, I think one of the next things I posted after that was, I just laughed at my mom. Yeah, I'm house sitting and dog sitting, as you can tell. Hey, yeah, this is what you do on podcasts. Charlie, can you put the dogs in the office with you? There. Welcome to my house and my crazy life. Athena, come here. So I think the second thing I posted was, I laughed at my mom today. What is wrong with me? I felt so bad for laughing at some silly thing she did that was definitely Alzheimer's. And the answers, somebody said, if you don't laugh, you'll cry, which has become the tagline for the play. Somebody else said, Oh, honey, I walked in on my grandma and she was watching hardcore porn. And she said, I didn't know what to do and I didn't want to upset her. So I just kind of let the show end. And her grandmother turned around and went, they have never done this on The Young and the Restless before. And you have to laugh. You have to laugh. So it became a support group. And then I reached out for everything.
Yeah, that it really became a much deeper relationship with your followers than when it was started out as merely an efficient way to inform them. And I remember in your book, you wrote in a post that the post became cathartic for me, and I'm quoting you here. It said, you had started off doing it about once a month, and then it went to twice a month, and then it was weekly, and then it became even daily. But you wrote at this point that you had increased the frequency to every week. Now, as I see her slipping away so fast, I'm posting almost daily. It is as if I can hang on to her just a little bit harder if I just keep writing.
Yeah. And I think, when I did the book to help other people, because so many people were coming to me and asking for advice. And then somebody turned the book into a play. The actress we hired had to drop out the first day of rehearsals because their mom was awake for it, diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I had to step in and play myself, which is a lot harder than it sounds and very frightening. But it became a hit. But one of the reasons I did not, and I fought tooth and nail to not star in this play, was because I didn't want to relive my mom's death. I did not want to relive Alzheimer's 8 times a week. But just the opposite happened. We staged this for 10 days in November in 2021. And there were a couple of times when the show was over, I took my final vows and I went in the dressing room and I almost called my mother to tell her how much they loved her. And I hadn't done that since she died. So what the play has done, Mom is with me every single day. Some days, whether I want her there or not, she is with me because I'm constantly posting, sharing, rewriting the play, answering questions either publicly or privately, because not a day goes by that I don't hear from a stranger or somebody saying, what do I do? How'd you get your mom to move to assisted living? That kind of thing.
Yeah, and this is so interesting because oftentimes people don't want to talk about it. They think if they talk about it, it just, they're having a pity party or they're just dwelling on it. And from the other side of things, people hesitate to talk with it about their friends who are going through it because they don't know what to say or they don't understand it or they don't want to bring it up for that person because the person might cry or might feel.
We're humans. We're humans. We don't like things that feel bad. We don't. So yeah, her friends stopped coming and that made me cry and it made me mad. And I still harbor some resentment to this day that her tennis buddies, her closest buddies, totally left her behind and stopped coming to visit. But even my own sons were like, we don't want to go anymore. She was magical to them. She was special. And they were like, that is not my grandmother. So I had to learn to accept other people's feelings about all this.
Right. And, what sense of that did you make?
I didn't make any sense of it probably until the last couple of years, really working on this play and talking to her friends. And I had to honor my son's wishes when they said, we don't want to go anymore. If it was hurting me that bad, it was hurting them so bad. And I remember yelling at my husband one day when he just simply asked the question, are you going to go see your mom tonight or are you waiting till tomorrow? And I just lit into him. It was like this pent up anger of, I don't like her. I didn't ask for this. I didn't sign up for this. That's not my mom. Why can't somebody else just take care of this for a change? And I felt so bad.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a scene in the play that so many people, caregivers, come up to me afterwards and say, I wish I could have voiced that.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to just let it out. But, her friends, it's just uncomfortable for people to come. And I tell people, but come anyway. Even if she doesn't remember you,
Mm-hmm.
just be a new visitor. Introduce yourself. You may have to introduce yourself 6 times in a row, but just live in her world and just say, your daughter Dana told me you like visitors. Hi, my name is Pat, and
Mm-hmm.
I heard you like tennis, and I like to play tennis too. Now, granted, she was mom's tennis doubles partner, but you're just going to have to live in her world. But I
Mm-hmm.
try to tell people all the time, everybody wants to know they're loved. Everybody wants to know they're cared for, even Alzheimer's patients who don't remember you. So just go be a new visitor. Go be somebody
Mm-hmm.
new.
And that was something that you learned too, because there came a time when she didn't know who you were.
No. And she kept saying, when is Dana coming? And it's over the years, I've talked to my neurologist and Alzheimer's researcher brother-in-law about this a lot. And she was waiting for the 25-year-old Dana that was on the radio. So she constantly would say, "Where is Dana?" When somebody would call me Dana, it would upset her because I was not the Dana she was waiting for.
Yeah.
And towards the end of her life, I don't know why I didn't think about this, but somebody said to me, do you have any tapes of your old radio shows? Can you play it for her? And I thought, well, I've tried
Mm-hmm.
everything. I've tried music. I've tried everything. So I played it for her, and I mean, it's like 20 years dropped off her face. And she
Mm.
smiled, and she looked at me, and her eyes twinkled, and she just put her head on my shoulder and listened. And when it was all, and I don't have many tapes of my old radio shows. And when it was over, she just looked at me with these pleading eyes. She wanted that Dana. She wanted more of that
Mm-hmm.
Dana. So,
Mm-hmm.
I hated that sometimes. The fourth place we moved her, which was the first place that had locked doors, which just felt awful. She insisted that the name tag outside her room, instead of saying Fran Nicholson, had to say Dana Steele so Dana could find her if she came.
Oh,
So that was a little weird every time I came to visit, but
yeah. Yeah.
um, it's those long memories. So,
Mm-hmm.
I was a 55-year-old woman. She didn't know who I was. She was looking for Dana.
Yeah.
So I knew she loved me, but she didn't love me. So that was really hard
Yeah.
the last year.
And holding on to that tape of your voice that really
Oh,
resonated
yeah.
with her. Yeah. Dana, when I'm working with caregivers, with health coaching, one of the things that is frequently comes up is an ambivalence of emotions, that people feel many emotions at the same time, and that there's also oftentimes an ambivalence about what they're feeling, or there's a kind of a collision of their emotions all at once. And in your book, you spoke a lot to the emotions that were coming up. Just a little bit ago, you mentioned the guilt. Um, and that's a very hard one for people, and it's very common for caregivers to feel guilty. And would you share with us the kind of ebb and flow of your emotions as your mother progressed
Oh,
through the stages of Alzheimer's, from the time you first found out until she was in hospice?
guilt's the number one. Guilt still comes up.
Mm-hmm.
Guilt still
Mm-hmm.
rears its ugly head at me. Because my mom, I mean, we had all of our affairs. Everything was in order. I was a co-owner in every bank account. We had all of that done, but we had never discussed where will you live if you become
Mm-hmm.
incapacitated. And I just always
Mm-hmm.
assumed that, I mean, my grandmother even though it was on my father's side. My grandmother lived alone till she was 95 and then just died, no illnesses, nothing. Mom had never been sick. I never broken bones, nothing. So I just figured that's probably she was going to live to 90, 95 and then just, die peacefully.
Mm-hmm. So
So
there was
my biggest
surprise.
guilt, yeah, there was surprise. There was, oh my God, what's coming?
Mm-hmm.
Their
Fear.
incredible guilt,
Mm-hmm.
fear, guilt for putting her in an old folks home, which was one of her biggest fears.
Mm-hmm.
Um, jealousy, jealousy still. I've been surprised recently by um, jealousy that has popped up, a new feeling that I'd not really felt before. And that's
Oh.
when somebody goes, "Oh, yeah, my mom's 92. She's still going to garden club or whatever." And for a brief
Yeah.
moment, I'm like, damn it. Why couldn't
Yeah.
I have had that with mom?
Mm-hmm.
Guilt's the biggest one. Sadness, just anger, just
Mm-hmm.
anger. I remember I left one day and my post that day was, I'll, I won't say the word, but I'll tell you the post was just F word, F word, F word. I can't do
Mm-hmm.
this anymore. I
Mm-hmm.
can't.
Mm-hmm.
And people were like, just let it out, because you have to keep going. And it's exhausting. It's
Mm-hmm.
depressing. I've been talking about writing a book about what it's like on the other side, because you're never quite yourself again after a caregiver experience. It's like my husband said, I thought he summed it up best. He said, you still have a darkness to you that was never there before. You just mask it better now. And I
Dana,
was like, whoa,
could you tell us what the darkness is?
just sad that this
Mm-hmm.
happened to such a vibrant, outgoing, caring, talented, creative, amazing woman, and that I didn't see it sooner.
Mm-hmm.
And an anger at the world that we don't have a cause or a cure. And I often say that I think it's environmental. My mom got up every morning and walked the golf course right after they sprayed it, with Monsanto. Who knows? But I'm like, if I'm alive when they figure out it's something in our environment, I am not going to be a happy consumer. I will not
Mm-hmm.
be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's a sadness. But I find that for me, and I'm very different than others because, again, I've been on the radio since I was 17 years old. I'm 64. I have no secrets. I posed pregnant and nude for the cover of a magazine like Demi Moore when she was pregnant. I don't have any secrets. So I think because I've been able to talk about this so much, it relieves a lot of it for me.
Mm-hmm.
But people don't understand it doesn't relieve all of it. I will always be
Mm-hmm.
very sad that this happened to her. And I've just found a way. I'm a content creator. I love creativity and being able to bring her back to life on stage. When I'm being her, I put on these are my glasses, but my youngest son goes, I hate those because they look just like Mimi. So when I'm playing my mom, I have some glasses like this and I just get into her Texas accent, you
Mm-hmm.
know, make these clouds go away. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
what? Yeah, I don't like them, so um, I can bring her back and people are not laughing at her.
Mm-hmm.
They are laughing with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I
I,
love that I can
yeah.
bring her back.
Yeah, and to be able to do it with some humor, not laughing at her. In your post, you reference humor and giving yourself permission to laugh.
It's
Um,
cathartic.
yeah, and I think for many caregivers, seeing any humor in their loved ones or their own situation is really taboo because of the underlying sadness of the
But you
illness, but
have to
also,
laugh. You have
yeah,
to.
yeah,
It's
and
good
and
for
they
you. It's good for your brain. It's good for your lungs. It's good for you.
Yes, and I think that it's not saying something negative about their loved one or themselves.
No.
They don't have to feel guilty about it because it's one of the ways we have of helping us feel better and giving us energy rather than just feeling drained.
And I think, my mom was also one of those people that she laughed at herself all the time. I mean, she just did. And that's probably where I got it from. It was really funny one night after I got off stage and I came out into the theater lobby to meet people. My cousin said, it was great. I loved it. I laughed. I cried, but I can't believe you didn't do the celery story. And I'm like, what's the celery story? And she goes, the celery story. And I'm like, no, I don't know. We have since put this in the play. I was like, what is the celery story? She goes, when your mom only needed one stalk of celery for a recipe, she'd just go to the grocery store and break it off and put it in her purse. Mom did what? She goes, you knew that. I'm like, no, my mom was stealing celery from the grocery store. So now every time I walk past the celery in the produce department in the grocery store, I just start cracking up. And in fact, the other day I thought, I just need one stalk.
Yeah.
I have turned into her. I swear to God, I'm going to break that off and put it in my purse. And she would have laughed if I had told her, Mom, stop that. She goes, oh, they don't care. I bring them cookies.
Well, you've discovered some things about your mom, and Dana, I'm wondering, what were your biggest discoveries about yourself and the biggest learnings that you had as a caregiver?
You do the best you can. It's like when you give birth and they put that child in your hands and send you out the door, there's not a manual. There's not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with Alzheimer's. There is no right or wrong way to do this. And caregivers, it's why I continue to do this. I call the play my love letter to caregivers. There's no right way. There's no wrong way. I didn't learn that till after she was gone. And I gave myself permission to let go of a lot of the guilt because I just did. I did the best I knew how. I was trying to work. Charlie was still flying for NASA, so he was gone all the time. The oldest son had started his life in Denver, and the middle son was in, college in Austin, and the youngest was a teenager, 12, 13 years old, just trying to function while he was losing his grandmother and me at the same time.
Yeah.
And he blurted out at dinner one night, all you do is cry all the time. And then he was horrified. He tried to pretend like he said something else. So it's hard on, I guess the two biggest things are there's no right way or wrong way to do this. And it is hurting the kids and the people around you as much as it is hurting you, even though you might not see it.
Yeah. That they're worried not only about the loved one with the illness and losing them, but they're also worried about you.
Yeah. Don't hide it from kids of any age. Try to explain age appropriate what is happening, but make sure you're giving, like, I know my brother, even though he wasn't there all the time, he was farther away. He was going through a divorce. He was just having his own things at the time. But at one point, Charlie said, we are going to New Orleans this weekend. Scooter is going to come stay at the house and take care of the dogs. And, the kids are old enough to get themselves to school and back. And your brother will be here to go take care of your mom if anything comes up. I have packed your bag. We are going. So I beg people to please do that for a caregiver in your life. Make them go to a hotel or something for a couple of days and take things over. Yeah, you can do that. Do something for the caregiver.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would certainly second that. And I think your story about your son, and what he blurted out was such an indicator of how important it is that you are taking care of yourself. And it sounds like your postings was really a way not just to get it out, but I think for those of us who have read the book and will read the book, we'll see a beautiful exchange, but in the comments of the followers, which are so supportive, and also is a camaraderie there, that you're not alone, and that there's a real appreciation and care for what you are doing.
Thank
So,
you. Thank you. That was kind
yeah.
of my point. I just didn't expect to
Mhm.
still be doing it 10 years later.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've already told us how therapeutic it is,
Yeah.
because the more you talk about it, the easier it is to live with.
And I continue to post. I post pictures. I post, excerpts from the book. I could just continue to post, hoping
Hmm.
that people see themselves in what I'm posting. And not every post is, a learning, it's not a lesson. Sometimes
Uh-huh.
it's just, hey, this is just stuff that happens.
Yeah. And I think that's so helpful for people to hear, because especially when people are going through the same thing, it's just reassuring to know I'm not the only one. And this is to be expected.
And
Um,
it's so important we get this information out in the community, especially in minority communities. In the African American community, it is not
mhm.
talked about. It is diagnosed later. Doctors and medical professionals don't take, people of color seriously. Same thing in the Hispanic community. That's just kind of hidden. We can't
Mhm.
hide this. We have to talk about it
Yeah.
because it is expected to be at pandemic levels in the next 10 years if we don't, find a cause, find a cure, find a
Mhm.
drug that works. And we got to take, we got to take care of each other. And if you have the knowledge and you've been through it, you know, educate somebody else in your community.
Well, and you're certainly a champion for that. And I have been curious about how your mother's Alzheimer's changed you personally. But I think you're telling us that you have become that champion for people and families who are going through this.
Yeah, it definitely, this is not what I expected to be doing. I didn't expect to be, an actor and a playwright and still talking about Alzheimer's. Um, But I just decided mom was not going to die in vain. And she loved to
Hmm.
help people. She loved to help people and she made everybody a dozen oatmeal rock cookies. Well, I hate the stupid cookies. So I'm not making the cookies for everybody, but
Hmm.
I will share our story. And, I know she's getting a kick out of all of it. I know,
Yeah.
she loved the Dana Steele that was on the radio. And I think she would love the Dana Steele that's on the stage, and I'm telling her story. And my
Hmm.
manager in New York, um, my theatrical manager, we were having a meeting a couple of months ago, and at the end of lunch, he said, "Okay, well, I'll get you my flight information. He's coming out. We're doing the play." Coming up the entire month of March in Palm Springs, California. And he said, I just can't wait to see Fran again. And I just, crying there at the table as we're trying to pay the bill. So that was nice. That was just totally
Yeah.
unexpected from him.
Well, Dana, you have certainly gone on your hero's journey, from the catastrophe through all the steps of that, and then turning it into something which is so virtuous and giving generously to other people. And
Thank
I
you.
really thank you for sharing that with us. And I think your story is really a story that can be inspirational to people, especially when they're in the middle of their personal hero's journey, when things look so bleak and it's hard to see the mountain range because you're just in the middle of the mountains. And
One day at a time. Just
right,
breathe. You know what?
right.
Take a walk. I always tell people take a walk. Um, or at least if you can't leave the person you're caring for, at least go sit outside in the backyard, if it's not -2. And just,
Yeah,
I mean, go sit in the bathroom and close the door for a second and just
yeah.
breathe. But if you can just take a walk around the block, just breathe. We tend, especially when we're stressed and we're angry and we're sad and we're confused or whatever, we tend to hold our breath. And that is the worst thing you can be doing for your brain. So just breathe, even if it's in the bathroom for a second. Just take a big breath. And also, if I may add, everybody, please buy 10 copies of my book so that I can fund my play. Thank you.
and I would second that recommendation. So
thank you,
Dana. This has been wonderful. And in one of your Facebook posts, you wrote to your followers, "Having you follow along on this journey gives me so much strength. Thanks for being there with me." And so today, I would just like to say on behalf of our listeners and myself, just thank you for deeply sharing your personal journey. It gives us so much strength and hope. And thanks for being here with us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. As Mom used to always say, I love you, a bushel and a peck, and a hug around the neck.
I love that. Thank you. If you got value from this podcast, please subscribe and follow along. There's lots more to come. And speaking of that, do you have topics or questions that you'd like addressed on the podcast? Your voice matters because this podcast is dedicated to supporting you and helping you protect and nurture your health and well-being. So click on the SpeakPipe link below and leave a voice message to let me know what you would like to have covered. Dana's and my links are below, and I'm hopeful that our podcast will help and encourage you, but I know that sometimes it takes more help than we can get online. If you would like to have a private, complimentary, one-on-one consultation with me to support your own health while you're caregiving, or if you would like to explore working with me individually for health and wellness coaching, I would love to hear from you. You may contact me through the links below. Join us next time for more tips and inspiration on the Caregiver's Careport. And until then, take care.